Evening. I am Pratham Divedi and I am joined with by Rajeev Dubey, who is the managing editor business of India Today Group. And as the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has said, I'll be presenting a budget like never before. And that's the line we are taking. Was it a budget like never before, or it was somewhat expected that this is what is going to be in this budget?
Yeah, Pratham, this is a question that we've been asking ourselves over and over again since the budget speech started. That has it, turned out to be a never before budget. I wouldn't say that it has met those expectations. I won't say, because a never before budget, you could also mean that it's bringing a whole lot of goodies to the common people. That is how it was interpreted in some ways. But in another way, if you look at what this budget has tried to achieve, and we are calling it in business today the reset budget, because it is practically reset the whole economy in many ways, more ways than one. Now, the biggest thing is that all along the government has been looking at the supply side of the economy, trying to ensure that the liquidity in the economy is good enough, and so they have practically missed in the entire Atmanirbhar Bharat package, totally missed the fact that demand is the problem. The economy was the economy was really struggling for demand. Consumption was the problem. Finally, this budget has tried to cater to that, and tried to cater to that in a very big way, because this year alone they have borrowed a lot more. Completely unanticipated 4 lakh crore additional borrowing over and above what they had already committed. So almost 40% of the government's total resources for the year, 38%, are coming from just borrowings, which is a amount that used to be about 18 to 20% earlier. So finally, there is a realization and an act towards consumption, towards demand in the economy. Second, that demand act had to be about infrastructure building, and finally there is an act of infrastructure building, not just on roads and highways, but also healthcare infrastructure and a whole lot of other infrastructure. Right. Third, it has also been suggested by almost all individuals, all economists, that you're too conservative about raising resources, non-tax resources, which has to do with disinvestment, badly performing central public sector undertakings must be sold off, they must be done away with. You have so many assets, why don't you monetize those assets? So finally the government has listened to that, and they have done something. So just what the doctor ordered, but within the resources, I mean, they had constraints, and so within those resources, whatever that the government has done is exactly what everybody was asking for, economists were asking for, was required at this point in time in the economy. And if you look at some of the other development financial institution, another initiative, asset reconstruction company to take care of bad assets, another big initiative required under the circumstances. So can't fault her for anything really at this point in time. Almost everything is as per what is being demanded of the economy right now. Now people can come back and say that, okay, your fiscal deficit is now 9.5%. You're going to be busting the government finances. But that's a reality of this budget. The fact is that we are in a once in a 100-year kind of pandemic, and the total tax collections of the government at the end of the financial year will be about 5 lakh crore lower than what they had originally projected. And so I don't think the government had any option but to borrow more to finance this, and that's precisely what they have done. Now, how much of this will lead to what kind of growth is something that we'll have to see. Whether it goes in the right direction, whether infrastructure which is supposed to be built does get built in time, those are the kind of analysis that will now follow. But if you ask anybody, you really can't fault her for what has been done, because this is exactly what everybody wanted.
healthcare, as you just mentioned, that we are going through one of the biggest challenging times of the century, I would say. Healthcare allocation for healthcare is like has seen a big jump from 94,000 crores to around more than 2.2 lakh crores of
So
the allocation.
that's together for healthcare, health and well-being.
Well,
Okay.
right.
Now that well-being also includes water, you know, and so uh, water I think is about 65,000 crore, and it also includes the COVID 35,000 crore that has been allocated. So if you take those two out, the healthcare spend is about a 1 lakh crore less as compared to. So this is health and well-being essentially, and that is why that comparison is not really valid, because you can't compare health expenditure with health and well-being expenditure. But nevertheless, it's there in the budget. But the fact is that you need to compare apples to apples, and in which case it's not a very substantial jump in healthcare. In fact, it's a small, it's slightly lower than overall this thing. But if you look at the intent, COVID is itself about a 35,000 crore expenditure, and government seems determined to almost pay for practically all of it. Because if you look at 35,000 crore allocation, currently there is the cost of vaccinating people is about 400 rupees per person, right? Two shots of 200 rupees each. That's what the government pays to the vaccination company. Now if you include 400 rupees into, let's say, all 130 crore people do not need to be vaccinated in the country, right? So about 60 to 70% will need to be vaccinated. So let's assume 100 crore people need to be vaccinated. At 400 rupees, it's a 40,000 crore expense. Government has already allocated 35,000 crore.
So can we?
And she has said that she is open to allocating more. So in some ways it is almost safe to assume that government will practically pay for almost everybody's vaccination. Whoever wants to come and get vaccinated, government might want to do that. 350 short of 35,000 crore will get you at 400 rupees some 80-90 crore people. So that should not be a problem.
So can we expect an announcement in coming future that everybody will be vaccinated for free?
So the numbers tell you this. This is, I'm just extrapolating what the numbers we are in front of us. We do not need 130 crore vaccinations. You only need about 100 crore. If 100 crore people have to be vaccinated at 400 rupees cost to the government, it's only going to be about 40,000 crore, right? And 35,000 crore is already allocated. So now government might say that, okay, whoever doesn't want to may just go and buy it in the private market. But it seems that they would want to offer vaccination to whoever wants to take it.
Talking about though the market looked really upbeat, the Sensex soared today, but when it comes to the common man, cess on petrol and diesel, not looking happy. Even the Congress leader P. Chidambaram was holding a press conference. He was attacking the government and giving statements about this budget. What do you think did the common man will
So cess doesn't affect the common man. Government has clarified that cess is actually, they've reduced taxes and they've imposed a cess. The only thing it does is that by imposing the cess, the amount that the government will calculate out of the cess will stay in the center. It doesn't go to the state. So earlier, if they were sharing that with the states, now it's with the center. It doesn't go to the state. So it's lesser money being shared with the states at a time when states and center are at loggerheads, about compensation cess and other issues. So that is going to create another point of conflict with the states. But the fact is that as far as common man is concerned, it doesn't affect him. Other initiatives of this thing, frankly, common man should have a sense of relief, because in the situation that the economy is, under the circumstances, if it wasn't for COVID, there would have been taxes.
Right.
If the economy was in this state, but for COVID, there would have been additional taxes just to get the economy out of this mess.
Right.
So it's I mean, common man shouldn't be expecting anything more than at this point in time, because the best that they could expect is that there would be investment in the economy, which will create some kind of a economic cycle to restart, and in which case there would be job creation in the economy. So that's the best, I think, under the circumstances. If any common man was expecting tax reliefs, I think that was unfair.
If you have any questions, we have a little space for taking your questions. If you have any questions, just type in on the comment section. I'll try to take your questions as well. Initially, you mentioned disinvestment, and that is one of the biggest talking points
Yes.
today.
Yes.
So, what do you make out of the disinvestment target which has been reduced, though it is not being met for last few years? What do you make out of this year's disinvestment target, and will the government be able to make that much of money through disinvestment this year?
You know, 1,75,000 crore is not a big amount, provided the government is able to walk the talk. The problem is that after 16-17 financial year, which is the only year in which the government did meet this investment target, we have never been able to meet the target that we have set for disinvestment. So in this case, having said that we are going to disinvest 2 public sector banks, one general insurance company, that we are going to go with LIC IPO, that we are going to divest, monetize government assets, whether it's pipeline or grids or other infrastructure, roads, highways, all of those. It really needs to walk the talk now. Now that it has set this target, it also knows how critical it is for its own financials to meet those targets. Basically, the problem has been that we have we have set those targets, and we've just set very ambitious targets without getting anywhere near those targets. This financial year, we have only about, according to economic survey, we are only at about 15,000 crore from the target of 2.1 lakh crore. So imagine we are 2 lakh crore short of target.
Right.
That's really unrealistic, and that's really bad planning, because for us to say that we are going to achieve 2,10,000 crore and to be able to only do 15,000 crore, it shows something wrong with the way it has been planned. So it's the intent is clear, but then the government needs to now walk the talk.
A fiscal deficit target of 9.5%, which is way above the target which was last year. And what do you make out of that? This target will it means that the government is going to borrow more and more money to meet its expenses.
The big reason, there are 2 reasons. One is, of course, that the government has fallen short of its tax targets, right? Tax collection targets by 5.2 lakh crore, right, for the financial year. So some 24 lakh crore that they were expecting, they're going to be short of by 5.21 lakh crore. That is one. Second, as COVID hit us, the government went on a spending spree, has actually invested more in the economy. So they borrowed 4 lakh crore more than. So first, the tax collection itself was lower. Then budget estimate was 30 lakh crore, which went to 34.5 lakh crore. So 4.5 lakh crore more had to be borrowed. As a result of which, the fiscal deficit has completely gone out of control, and which was expected, because if you are going to spend enormous amount of money in the economy, fiscal deficit was to go up. But nobody expected 9.5% fiscal deficit. Everybody was saying 7%, 7.5%. Somebody said 8%, but nobody expected the deficit to be as high as 9.5%. And whether this government has been seen as a conservative government, which was getting towards the FRBM target of 3.5%, but That was totally unexpected. But it is also a surprise when the center, when finance minister tells us that in budget estimate of expenditure by the government was 30 lakh crore, and they actually are planning to spend 34.5 lakh crore. That's a pleasant surprise in some ways, because that's what everybody has been asking for.
Let's talk about the political side of the budget, because when finance minister mentioned West Bengal, Assam,
Yes,
Kerala,
Tamil Nadu.
Tamil Nadu,
Yes.
they were people were shouting, which were people who were sitting behind her. What do you make? How political is this budget?
Of course, very political, killing two birds with one stone. The whole idea was that, if you have to spend on infrastructure, why not spend on infrastructure in states which are going to polls?
Right.
So, government in power has that flexibility, has that within its right and within its control to be able to do that. But under any circumstances, this is definitely political, without doubt. I mean, it is the intent is to benefit those states which are going for polls right now. There's Tamil Nadu right away, and there is Kerala, then there is you have which was the third state, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and West Bengal, right? So all of the, and Tamil Nadu has got enormous spike allocation. So without doubt, I think they have tried to make the most of it on both the counts. One, if they have to spend on infrastructure, might as well spend where the returns are going to be the highest politically.
And talking about the education sector, wherein the government brought in new education policy and government has allocated funds to implement that policy, and then there are new Sainik schools also which have been proposed, and also university in Leh, if I am correct.
Yeah.
So, do you think this is this is approaching towards a new India which the government has already been talking about? And what about the skill development, which was talked a lot previously, but this year we didn't hear much about it?
In fact, the HR professionals that we've been talking to post this announcement have, most of them, been raising this issue, two issues. One is, where are the jobs, right? And now the government can turn back and say that the jobs are going to be in infrastructure, right? If they are going to be in real estate, they are going to be in wherever. If the government is pushing for affordable housing or real estate development or infrastructure development, those are big generators of employment. The textile parks that that textile industry is one of the biggest employers in the country. If the textile parks do come through, the mega investment parks, in which case you could expect employment generation. The question is whether it will happen or not. The announcements have been happening for a long time. But if they do kick off, if they do get the kind of investment, mega investments that the government policies, I mean, there is going to be announcement of the full policy, but she has just announced the intent right now. So if that happens, you can expect employment generation. But yes, I mean, skill development has been the first year of the Modi government. That seemed like one of the, you had the skill development ministry, and you had enormous push in that area. But I think that has somewhat kind of got lost on the way.
And the government the finance minister has also talked about making the Sebi as a regulator for gold exchange. How do you explain that decision? What's going to change in future?
So, in general, if you look at the intent of this government, you will find that they have been working around common regulators for a lot of things. Like in RBI's case, for instance, in the banking and financial services sector, they brought housing finance companies under, then NBFCs under RBI's ambit, and so it is the splintered manner in which different sectors had been growing they do require. There are many sectors which don't have. Like there has to be a data regulator right now, right? There has to be a data privacy regulator. Somebody has to be able to take a call on whether Indian citizens' data is safe or not safe. But we don't have anything right now, and there is an intent to do that. Similarly, in many sectors, there is a the intent is to the plan is to bring about a regulator who will. There's a plan for a full-fledged financial sector regulator, right? So there is a plan. There's a plan for power regulator. There are all kinds of regulators, and that is I think the best way to go about it, because otherwise you will also have a situation like there was in the case of bitcoins and cryptocurrencies, where there was a ping pong going on between the Reserve Bank of India, Finance Ministry, Securities Exchange Board of India, whether it is a financial instrument or is it a currency. According to that will be the regulator. Now, if you don't even know what kind of an animal this is, which regulator should regulate it? So it's best to have bring about these runaway businesses, runaway industries under some kind of regulatory control, because otherwise they go completely haywire.
The Sensex rose 5% today. However, the week before it
had fallen
down 7%.
Yes.
Now a jump of 5% in just one day. What do you expect in coming days in the market?
See, I think the immediate from whatever we are assessing at Business Today, it seems that the uptick in you can't expect too much of an uptick on the Sensex right now, for some time now, because whatever was to happen has, I think Sensex had already accounted for it.
Right.
The development financial institution, asset reconstruction company, scrappage policy, for auto industry, most of these things had already been accounted for. Auto stocks had gone up accordingly, financial institution stocks had gone up accordingly, because they were a given. The government's own intent had been very clear. There had been enough hints from the government also that this is going to happen. So all of those had already been accounted for. Today's spike is more to do with the relief that there is no more tax.
Right.
So everybody is relieved that there are no more taxes on individuals, that there is no tax on because the way the Sensex was going, people were thinking that government might want to, there might be not just a COVID cess, there might have been a cess on earnings on the stocks, right? So all those fears were unfounded clearly, and so there is that relief, I think, is what is showing in the Sensex. But fine print will be uncovered over the next 24 hours, and you will see some gyration by the stock market as things get disclosed. But by and large, this budget is probably one of the neatest and cleanest, in terms of what it is telling you, because and even, for instance, in the fiscal deficit front, the finance minister very clearly said that they have been as transparent as they can be, and basically the extra budgetary borrowings have been brought into the budget to say that okay, this 9.5% fiscal deficit is for real, and that it's not a hidden fiscal deficit.
And when the Prime Minister spoke after the budget, and I quote, ये बजट इंडिविजुअल्स, इन्वेस्टर्स, इंडस्ट्री और साथ ही इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर सेक्टर में बहुत सकारात्मक बदलाव लाएगा. So he is talking about a positive change. Do you agree with him that there is going to be a positive change in coming this fiscal year? Already we have laid out the plan for this fiscal year. Not only this fiscal year, but years to come also.
If you look at what has been done in this financial year, it was an unusual year, and what has been done is also very unusual. That government would go and spend way beyond its means. That budget target was 30 lakh crore, 30 point something, spent 34 something lakh crore. It is unusual. and any unusual occurrence or any unusual investment in the economy will lead to unusual returns or unusual impact, right? So if the if all the promises that have been if all the announcements that have been made with regard to disinvestment, with regard to infrastructure spending, with regard to healthcare spending, they will leave a very significant impact on the economy. Especially, one of the experiences that has happened in the healthcare area is that in Indonesia, that when they had a choice of spending between primary care, secondary care, and tertiary care in Indonesia, they decided to spend more on primary care, and that has led to very long-term impact on life expectancy, on people's on the health of individuals, and that has a direct bearing on economic growth. People may not realize it, but it has absolutely a direct impact on the economic growth, because you live longer, you work longer, you actually create more value, and you are falling you're not falling sick that often. You are not spending too much out of your pocket on healthcare needs, and so you are wealthier, you are happier, and you're also healthier. So these are the kind of things that seem like abstract when they are being done, especially something like infrastructure spend or healthcare spend, but they are very, very critical. Something on water, on sanitation, they seem like very basic, and why would government want to spend so much on it or focus so much on it? But they are for real. They do have a long term impact.
Taking a cue from the point you mentioned here, the finance minister's speech, the part one of the speech said the 6 points for Atmanirbhar Bharat, and that's what you just mentioned, that it is a budget to make India more self-reliant. We'll see the impact in coming days in the entire fiscal year. We have time for this much right now. We'll see you again with some more news. Till then, keep watching India Today.